welcome and thank you for joining our Music for Global Change broadcast with founder and music ambassador Skyler Jett and presenter Tom Bryant and Ryan Shewchuk. And our special guest today is Reggie Bullock.
Welcome to the show, Reggie Bullock. You were born and raised in the Bronx, New York. 1980, you graduated from Eastern Connecticut University, starting a career in teaching, which lasted for 17 years. You then transitioned to filmmaking in 2008 and created the film A War for Your Soul, with an estimated 20 million viewers. It's been mentioned by CNN and also on the show with Reverend Al Sharpton's Civil Rights Film Festival as well. You've received no less than 3 Key to the City awards from Corpus Christi, Texas, Riviera Beach, Florida, and Macon, Georgia. So other documentaries you've been involved with: Malcolm X, Dr. King's Nightmare, The Panthers, A Time to Dance, among others. There's lots more to say, so welcome to the show, and please tell us more.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'm honored to be in this position to talk to you guys, not only because it's a great show, it's a great platform you guys have, but more than anything, just before War for Your Soul took off, I was diagnosed with something called Myasthenia gravis. That's where the signals from your brain, they don't reach certain parts of your body. It can get to a point where you're at a restaurant and you're eating food and the muscles in your neck don't work to push the food down. So you have to rush to the bathroom to throw up or whatever. And so I went through that, and the only way they could attempt to heal it was to cut my chest open. And it's like open heart surgery. So they cut it open, they take out my thymus gland, not my thyroid, but my thymus gland, which if I could go back in time, I'm like, no, I kind of need that. But they cut me open. So that's a major surgery when they cut your chest open. You got the rings in your chest. And then about 3 years ago, my balance was off. And my parents noticed it big time. They looked at me and they said, hey, son, there's something wrong. My mother first thought, she said, well, I know my son has drinks, but I know he's not drinking 10 o'clock in the morning when we're at AutoZone. So she asked me, she said, son, is something wrong? I said, no. I was trying to hide it because my balance was off. Come to find out, I had a massive tumor in my brain. Oh, wow. And so they go in, they take this thing out, and I just happened to be lucky. I mean, lucky, God, whatever you want to call it. I was lucky enough to get the top neurosurgeon in the world. He's worked on Ted Kennedy, works on everybody in the world. And to show you how big this guy was, when I went into the hospital, they said, who are you? And I was teasing nurses. I said, you don't know who I am? It's like, who are you? Because he only works on celebrities and famous politicians. Bottom line was, Dr. Friedman took this thing out. Everything has been fine. My memory is good, except for when I owe people money. I literally block and go, hey,
same.
How much do I owe you? 20,000. I don't remember that. I'm sorry. You got to forgive me. My brain surgery. But the bottom line is everything is perfect. So when you ask me, tell me about yourself, that's the first thing I bring up. Forget the accolades, forget the awards, forget all that other stuff. I'm just happy to be alive. Yeah. And I try to tell everybody, listen, you don't know when it's your turn to be sick or be ill or whatever. Enjoy every moment. Yeah. And that's where I am now mentally.
Yeah. I feel the same way, brother. I had a heart attack December 17th and almost got up out of here. And but God had better plans for me as far as keep my mission going, right? And then 2 months after that, I found my son. Well, I met my son that I never knew I had. So the blessings are coming in. Tom's been helping me with the TV show. We can keep it going, and I'm blessed. I feel blessed, brother.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I'm happy to hear that.
Man,
we go through it. But
we're still here.
I find through major illness,
and
I'm not saying everybody needs to go through this, but it changes my perspective on filmmaking.
Oh man.
I said, what do I want to leave this earth? What do I want to leave? Because now you start to think about death for the first time. Right. And for me personally, it's just something that's changed me forever. And I'm happy that it happened now that I made it through.
Yeah.
But it's just something I feel a message that I have to deliver to people. Every time I get on these platforms, I usually, before I go into the filmmaking, the progression from teaching to this, to that, to this, I literally say, to everybody, hey, enjoy your family, enjoy your time. If you don't have family, just enjoy the sun, the stars, enjoy a walk. Because when it changes, I'm telling you, when I was getting ready to go under,
Yeah.
all my family's calling me, whoa, we hope you're okay. We hope this, we hope that. And in my mind, I'm saying, God, I may never be the same. I may come out with a little bit of memory.
Right.
I may come out not knowing my children anymore. I may come out not knowing my mother. And so when I came out of it and I was cracking jokes with everybody, they were like, wait a minute, is there some issue that you have? I'm like, no, everything is fine. And so that's where I'm at now mentally.
Did they give you, I mean, that has to be so scary. I've never been put in that position, but I mean, did they give you like, usually, you see on television or something, the doctor gives you 50% or, you know what I mean? Like they were pretty confident about the procedure or was it super risky?
It was super risky. Any brain surgery is super risky.
Sure.
They're cracking your skull, they're going in, they're taking stuff out.
Yeah.
I felt confident when I first got into the ambulance and it drove me to the hospital. I thought it was strange because the ambulance driver says, "Oh, you got Dr. Friedman." And I'm like, "How do you know? You're a driver."
Right.
And he says to me,
is that good or bad? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm how do you know? You don't work at the hospital. You're just a guy that delivers people. And he said, "Oh, he's the best." And so I'm not thinking much about it. Then when I get to the hospital, I'm telling you, like 3 different nurses said, "Oh, no, really, who are you?" And then I played along and said, "I'm Reggie Bullock." And so, "You never heard of me?" They're like, "No."
Yeah.
And so I'm playing it up. And just to get a joke. But then I started feeling, I said, wait a minute, this guy, and then my daughter started doing research. And she said, "Dad, this guy's the best in the world." In the world. I just happened to be on the list.
Yeah.
And so when I heard that, I felt good.
Yeah.
But the one thing I started reconciling within myself, because no matter how good he is, if your brain is going to mess up, it's going to mess up.
Sure.
Right.
The one thing I felt good about was I said, you've led a good life. You haven't been perfect. There are mistakes I wish I could change. But I said, overall, you've done a decent job. You worked with kids. You're a decent father. I wasn't the best father, but I was decent. And if I can come out of this, I'll be even a better father, a better friend, a better person to humanity. And that was the biggest thing that I got out of before I went in. And when I came out, I was still talking the same mess, the same smack that I would be afterwards, but
they knew you were good
now. Yeah.
Tom, you got a question?
I mean, I saw that the surgery, maybe the surgery or before the surgery, you were paralyzed. Is that right?
Yes and no. I went through with the myasthenia gravis. That was another totally different illness.
Right.
They call me the cat with 9 lives. That did paralyze me for a day or two.
Yeah.
Right.
It did. And that was the most humiliating thing, because when I'm in the hospital, these 2 male nurses, they take me over to the bathroom and they said, "Sit down on the toilet." I said, "Well, are you guys going to leave?" They said, "No, we can't leave because you might fall."
Yeah.
And that was the first time you flash back to, everybody has this flashback. Mommy, I went to potty by myself.
Right.
You're proud. You're proud of that moment. That's one of the biggest defining moments of human being's life. When you can look at your mom, your dad, and say, "Hey, I just took a dump by myself. You don't have to watch me anymore." Yeah. Now here I am. I was about 40 at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to these grown men, "Hey, you guys can leave." They're like, "No, we can't. We have to stay here." That was one of the most humiliating time periods of my life. As I sat there and I said, "God, what are you doing to me?" Not realizing that this was going to help me grow as a man spiritually, to understand that there are going to be situations that all 3 of you are going to be in where you're going to need help and you can't depend on anybody else but somebody else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've been there.
So
I've been there. Now, what I've been wanting to ask you was, because you're a filmmaker, how important is positive music to the film industry?
Oh, it's huge. It's bigger than anything. Let me tell you, brother, what you do is bigger than what you can ever imagine. All the things that you've done is bigger. And let me tell you why. When I first started fooling around with music, my mind was black centric. Everything is black, black, black. And when I started fooling around with it, I had a scene where I was making my son a superhero. My son was about 3 at the time. And I was doing a little film clip, not for people to see, just for my family. And my son is crawling up these steps. And I said, Isaiah, you got to make it like you're crawling up Mount Everest. What is Mount Everest, Dad? I said, no, just pretend. Crawl up the stairs. And so I'm filming him. And after I filmed it, I said, I got to put the right music behind this. So I'm putting every black song I could find.
Sure.
I'm putting everything soulful, whether it was slow, fast, hip hop, rap. And it just didn't fit. I don't know why. And this was a big filmmaking moment. I took a opera song where, ooh, 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 and I put that behind it. As my son is climbing, you could feel it. Right. I said, whoa. And from that moment, it changed my view of music worldwide.
Yeah.
Because I was able to take a picture of my son crawling up these steps, put opera music behind it, and it changed the texture of what I was trying to show. So from that moment on, it opened up my mind to all music globally, that music is so powerful. And one more thing I will add, with Warfare Soul, I must have gone to 60 different cities to speak about the film, and they would show the film. And at the moment where people would cry, the entire audience would cry at the end of the film when I had Yolanda Adams singing Open My Heart.
Yeah.
And when she sang Open My Heart, the entire audience started crying. I don't care if they were college kids. I don't care if they were 80 or 90-year-old church people. They all started crying at that moment. So the question you asked, Skyler, was such a great question, because music can literally, one more thing, I'm in the Oculus now, you know, the goggles they put on your faces. And I'm in the Oculus world.
Yeah.
I'm showing 90 different films, you know, not films, I'm sorry, videos, music videos. And when Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror came on from the Grammy Awards, everybody became quiet. It wasn't Michael Jackson. They could feel Man in the Mirror.
The song.
Make that change. They could
the content.
And so that answer, hopefully that answers your question. Music is powerful. Absolutely powerful.
Well, you know, film is powerful by itself and music is powerful by itself. But when you put it together.
Yes. Oh my God.
And especially the editing, right? If you do the right song, because I've been involved in directing some of my videos, and I use my lyrics as the script, and I mean literally, right? Because I want you to see what I was saying instead of seeing some mountains over here when I'm talking about something else. You know what I mean? When they start making the first music videos, it didn't match up to me, you know. And you just really need to take what you're saying and put the emotion with that. And it could be any kind of instrument, because you know, certain instruments that do that. When you want to cry, what they use? The violin, right?
Right.
They have a little sexy part. They play saxophone, right? It's certain people don't know that. They're looking at the film, but that music is pulling them into the emotions.
Yes.
To whatever that scene is, right?
And it crosses racial, cultural barriers.
Yeah.
It really, really does, because I had an argument or a debate with my daughter last night. My daughter's 38. We had a big debate last night because the new film I'm working on is Cape Verdeans, a small group of islands off the coast of Africa.
Okay.
And I happen to work with a lot of Cape Verdean students. Cape Verdeans, I guess you could say they look, well, they look like the average African-American, meaning they could look black, they could look Spanish. They just look like the whole diaspora of black people. But the bottom line is, I've always been fascinated with them. And so when I found out, one of my favorite groups from the 70s was a group called Tavares.
Oh, I remember Tavares.
Remember Tavares? You
of course.
Remember them. And they were Cape Verdean. And they had this one song that me and the basketball team, we used to perform in front of a group of white kids. They used to laugh at us. And we were performing this song. We weren't singing, but it was a song called Remember What I Told You to Forget. It was a love song.
Oh, yeah.
Remember what I told you to forget. Now, that's deep in itself. Remember what I told you to forget.
Yeah.
And so we were performing this in our underwear. We're singing. The kids are laughing at the school. But I never forgot that song. This is from Cape Verde. When you talk about Ireland, you talk about all the great musicians, you talk about the Beatles, you talk about the Rolling Stones. When you mix it all up, music is our one unifying thing, even more than film.
Yeah.
Music unifies all of us across the globe.
Well, because it's emotion. You know what I mean? And you can be in your car and like we were when I was a kid, we didn't have videos. You know what I mean?
Right.
You put the song on and then whatever you felt right there. You remember, and the lyrics will take you there, so you can almost see what they was talking about. You know what I mean? Good. So it's so powerful I think with film, and I like to match scenes up with that stuff. I got really an amazing crew that can help with that kind of stuff. Ryan, you got another question?
Yeah, I wanted to speak a bit more about your filmmaking career. Well, one, how did you go from teaching to filmmaking? Like, what was that transition? Like, how did you get there?
Great question, Ryan. The first thing I'll say is, and this is a little off topic, but every child kind of shows you who they are in that first 5 or 6 years. Psychologists have said it, child psychologists have said it. They show you. It has always been in me, but I didn't know where to go with this. My parents didn't know where to go. Bottom line was, when I was teaching, there was a series called Eyes on the Prize. It was, 10 hours of the history of Black people in this country. And I primarily worked with African-American students. And so I said, my kids are not going to pay attention to 10 hours. They're just not. Their attention span, we're at that point 20 years ago, their attention span wasn't going to be there. So what I did was I took the film, got 2 VCRs and chopped it up. Took out put in the most exciting scenes. And when it got boring, I would go back to what Skyler said. I would take my own music and add it in. So what ended up happening is I took a 10-hour series and turned it into maybe 1 hour. I would show the kids 30 minutes one day and 30 minutes the next day. The kids loved it. One kid takes his parents to Blockbuster Video and says, "Oh, you got to see what Mr. Bullock did. He brought in this film." So they run out like 5 episodes, and the kid comes back to me on a Monday morning and said, "Mr. Bullock, the film, that's different. Something, wait a minute, the music is not the same. You had new music. What did you do?" And I said, "Well, I was kind of fooling around with it."
Give me the remix.
That's what I said. I kind of took liberties I shouldn't have taken.
Right.
And then we had a big basketball game, New London High School versus North Tree Academy. It's the biggest game of the year, and I wanted to hype up our kids. So I took clips of Mike Tyson losing to Buster Douglas. I took clips of Willis Reed walking out Game 7. He could barely walk. I took all the clips of the greatest athletes who had to overcome difficulties, and I put sad music behind it. And I said, guys, and it was only a 5-minute video, this is what you're up against tonight. You can't beat New London, but all of these greats defeated somebody. And I saw the energy in the room. At that moment, I said, you need to do something with film. Yeah. Because you have this ability to pick out the music, to pick out the right pictures, to move people. So that's kind of what started. Yeah, that's kind of what started the progression. But I still didn't know where I was going to go with this thing. And then to close it off, what happened was the night Obama was elected, I'm sitting there watching this. I tried to get my son. My son is 23 now. I think he was like 8 at the time. I tried to get him to stay up. He was sleeping. Ex-wife was sleeping. Nobody cared. I'm sitting there watching it. And I said, man, if I was working with students, how would you show this to them? What would you show them?
Right. And
I decided with War for Your Soul to go from 1619, show everything that happened in 17 minutes, not 2 hours, in 17 minutes, show the progression of what happened to people of color in this country, and then put the music behind it, and then ended up with Obama winning. Yeah. And show the change that can happen. Yeah. And I expected this only to be watched by, honestly, this is a true story. I believe that if 10 people saw this, I was so happy. And one day there was 90 people that watched it, 90 people on one day. And I said, oh my God, I started calling people, 90 people watch. This is so cool. I didn't know that 20 million people were going to see this.
Yeah.
And so now it's not the number of 20 million. I reflect back to the 90 people. I reflect back to the one person that saw it. And so that was, I hope I answered. I went in different directions, but I hope that answered some of that question. That's kind of what shifted me into filmmaking.
Yeah. Wonderful. Tom, you got a question?
Yeah, well, not only have you done filmmaking, you also in 2019, I read that you launched a comedy show channel entitled Reggie Ruthie and the Rev on YouTube. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
You know what, Tom? I'm glad you asked. If my family is watching this, please forgive me, but I have always been a comedian deep down inside. I love to laugh.
Same.
I laugh so much that it's to the point where people think I'm crazy. And especially after the brain surgery, no, he's laughing more than normal. No, I've always been like this since a kid. To give you an example, I'm the kid in the first grade that if somebody said a joke behind the teacher's back, everybody would laugh.
Yeah.
Then they knew when the teacher turned around, stop laughing.
Yeah.
Not yours truly. I couldn't help it. I was the one that always got in trouble because I could visually see the humor. And so I said to myself, I said, no, I am going to start a comedy channel. I'm not a comedian. I'm going to try to be funny. And the first 5 episodes, they're still on YouTube. They're not that funny. They're not that funny. To me, they were funny. But to my family, like, please stop. Just stay with the films. Stop. Yeah. So what happened was, because I'm a competitor by nature, former basketball player, what I decided to do was I said, no, you got to learn how to write jokes. You got to learn how to write a punchline. You got to learn how to. So what I did with that was I have 3 voices. I do voices all the time. Yeah. Scott, if I'm around you long enough, I'll start doing your voice. Your sayings, your phrases, I will imitate you to the point where everybody say, oh, that's Skyler he's doing right now. I get that from my mother. My mother cannot tell a regular story without doing voices. So I started doing the voices. So with this show, Reggie Ruthie the Rev, I have my voice as the moderator. I've got Ruthie's voice, who's an old lady, who's really my mom. And then I've got the Rev, who's a cranky reverend who gets all the Bible phrases mixed up. And I have all 3 of them going at the same time, all 3 of my voices. So anyway, it's progressed where now people are writing me and saying, you got to do this live. And what it's taught me once again is I wasn't a comedian. I never did stand-up or anything like that. But it showed me that if you put your mind to something, you can really draw people in. So now after I spend, to do a 5-minute show, I will spend a day and a half writing and rewriting jokes, because if I don't laugh hysterically at the joke, it's not funny. I have to laugh hysterically at it. And the voices have to be perfect. And they've got to be talking over each other. And I'm sure you know this as far as being involved as a musician. I know how to have all 3 of our voices, which is all my voices, talking at the same time. I've got my mother's voice down. One of my best friends, I've known him since we were 6 years old. He called me and said, that sounds like your mom.
Wow, wow.
I felt good because I was like, wow, it doesn't sound like me. It sounds like
you can
mom.
mimic. Yeah.
Yes, mimic. And so I do impressions. But anyway, but that's what started. And I'm having fun doing that because I'm like, you don't have to do serious documentaries all the time. You can branch out and do something fun.
Right. So, well, this is Music for Global Change. So I need to get back to your feelings around social conscious music and why it's important to society.
You know, I told you I've become a fan of the VR world, virtual reality world with the Oculus. It is the future. It's the way we're going to go. I can watch your show tonight in VR and I'll be in a movie theater screen. That's what it looked like. When I watch it on YouTube, I won't watch it on my TV set. I'm going to watch it with the goggles on because the goggles takes me in a movie theater. So I'm going to see your face in a movie theater. When I turn to my left, I'm going to see the seats. To my right, I can play this for thousands of people around the world. And you know what's so funny? It's just funny. I've met so many people from the UK, and they are, this is bizarre because I'm learning this. They're the coolest people in the world. They understand music on a different level than Americans do. And I could be stereotyping, but they really do. People in the UK, they understand the Beatles, Elvis Presley. They understand Little Richard. They understand. It's just a different level. Now, you might have a different perspective because you're living there, but it's a different perspective of music, particularly African-American music. They have more of appreciation than we do here.
Oh, yeah. But you know what they call it over here? You know what they call R&B over here?
What do they call it?
Soul music.
Really?
They never use R&B.
That's what it was.
They call it soul music. Everything is, be black is soul music, right?
Soul music. Yeah.
But I find that the lyrical content I write about certain situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what separates what I'm doing from just social conscious music is that
Mm-hmm.
I write positive social conscious music. You know, you can write social conscious music, and you know, it can be complaints about what's going on in our society, right? But positive music is the music you was talking about, could put you in a whole nother mood.
Yeah.
What's your feelings?
Well, you know, and I got off track talking about the Oculus. When I was in the Oculus the other day, one of the biggest complaints I heard, and mostly millennials are in this thing. So it's, I would say average age is 30 to 40.
Okay.
So me being in my 60s, I'm way out of my pocket being there. But I just go in, I don't try to preach, I don't teach, I just listen.
Yeah.
And they are saying, these are 30 to 40-year-old men, black men are saying, the creation of some of the rap is destroying our children.
Mm.
So I jumped in and I said, well, you know, you got to understand that we've always had risque music way back. They said, no, not like it is today. There is a form of music now. I don't know if you're familiar with, I just became familiar with this in the last, I want to say 3 months. My son, 23, he's a rapper. And he said to me, he said, Dad, have you heard drill music? I said, what's drill music? He said, that's music that is specifically talking about targeting people to kill them. I said, that's not true. I've never heard that's not true. I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
So I started doing my research. Black Mayor Eric Adams of New York City, one of the largest cities in the world, said that he wants to stop. I thought he wanted to stop rap music. I said, he's crazy. But then when I heard what he was trying, he started trying to stop drill music. Drill music is a form of rap music. And so the police are using drill music to catch people. Bottom line, what I'm saying is trying to answer your question of, so what do you think music, if there's a negative force of music that's, it's always been out there, but it's growing. Yeah. And that's the dangerous part. There's a type of drill music in Chicago. There's a type of drill music in the South. There's a type of drill music in New York. That's specifically targeting, it is gang related. And listen, I grew up in the rap era. I grew up in the Bronx, New York, where rap was created. I can tell you my first moment I heard rap music. I do not diss rap music because that's my culture.
Sure.
Forget about New York. That's my culture. Anybody tell you about rap music, they'll tell you it was created and formed in the Bronx, New York. So I was there at the exact age when this music came out, when the rest of the world, when the rest of New York City didn't know about it. Forget about NWA, forget about all these other groups. I was there for the beginning. So I would never diss it, but I'm telling you, it's extended. So to answer your question, Sky, I know I went all the way around the tree with this one, but if music can be used for a drive-by, it certainly can be used to bring people together.
Right.
Absolutely.
Make people love each other.
You know who was rap for me back in the day? It's Gil Scott-Heron.
Oh, yes. That was before, yes.
He was doing it way before.
Yes.
Yeah, man. My sister was married to Bryant Jackson, who wrote Angel Dust and all them tunes like that. But Gil was doing it but he was doing it about the struggle.
Yes.
Right? He ain't talking about,
no, shooting and
be this and all that. They know. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. So to show you how powerful music is, man, just like, see, I go back to Woodstock, and that was one of the most powerful events that ever happened in the music industry. Yeah. Simply because all the acts that came out there, upstate New York, they not only did their music, but they wrote songs about stopping the Vietnam War.
Yes.
It was the young people that stopped the Vietnam War, right? And a lot of it was the music that they was doing back then.
Yes.
And so it's time for that again on racism. We have to show how stupid racism is. It's a man-made thing, but my thing is to, it's insane, but the only thing we got going for us right now, even in political situations and all stuff like that, the best thing that we got going for us is more people want to get along than people that don't.
Yeah. You're getting tired. Yes.
And we have to encourage more of that. It's like people that really want to get along. You know what I mean? But, if you're around negativity, what do you think is going to happen? Right? Yeah. And some of these kids today, they don't have an outlet. No. I'm a single parent welfare child that's been to over 36 countries. So don't tell me I can't do it. I've already done it, and I did it with no money. So I can't hear them excuses from anybody when they come to me talking about, well, I ain't got no money, or I can't do that. Well, you're the only one stopping you.
But the funny thing is there are no songs inspiring kids to go in that direction. There's nothing, and not blaming, not giving all the credit to music and not taking away from music, because there's other elements of society that we have to address. You know, like to give you an example, when I was doing my last documentary on a young man, he's not young, he's actually, you guys are the same age, Michael Sledge.
Yes.
Michael was bullied. He was a premature child, so he's always physically 2 years behind everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
His face was bloodied when he came home from school. He lived in Harlem. And when these group of kids, I'm going to name them because he names them on everything we're on. He said there was a group of kids called the Rock Family, and they would beat him mercilessly. We're talking about blood. We're not talking about they took his cookies or they teased him. No, they beat him until he had a bloody lip and bloody nose every day. And when he came into his house, came into his apartment, he had to quickly run and change his clothes because his mother would get mad and either make him want to fight or say, who took your bike? It was never a situation of come here. It was kill or be killed. And so this little premature baby had to deal with this his whole life. Now, in doing my research on the film, I wanted to find out the projects that he grew up in. And one of the things that I found out, and this is why I say race, sometimes it's economics. It's more than just the color. I found out that the projects that he grew up in was predominantly white at one point in the 1930s. And what happened with this project is they gave vouchers and they kept the New York City kept these apartments perfectly clean. So if somebody decided to pee in the elevator, it was cleaned up the next day. Then they gave vouchers to most of the white people that lived there who were whatever, Irish, Polish, whatever they were. And then they moved out of these projects to homes. And then they allowed black people to move in these projects. And then the money stopped. They stopped cleaning up the pee in the elevator. So then what ends up happening is you get urine in the elevator, on the steps. What ends up happening is the neighborhood ends up being destroyed. And it's very easy to look from the outside and say, oh, they could have cleaned it up on their own. No, sometimes you need that financial element to help clean up certain situations. I noticed that when I was in college. I went to a predominantly white college, and I was this smooth. Can I brag for a second? Hopefully my kids don't ever see this, but but I was smooth enough as a freshman to talk to a senior. And so when I talked to her, she allowed me to stay at her place, and then I would go get my clothes. I would go get my clothes from my freshman dorm. And when I went to the freshman dorm, I would notice Thursday nights, Friday morning, the dorm looked like an atomic bomb had hit it. The popcorn over the place, throw up all over the place. These were predominantly white kids, but Saturday morning, that place was completely cleaned up like it had never happened.
Right.
And that was all based on finance. If that happens in a black dorm or somewhere, they don't have the finance to clean it up. So our dorm always looked clean and tight.
Yeah.
But yet, if you look at a black dorm, you'd say, oh, see, those people are nasty. Those people are disgusting. No, it was the finances of cleaning the place up.
Yeah, man.
And so that's what happened in Michael's situation. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes it's more than the music. It's just the finances of understanding how people live, who got breaks and who didn't get breaks.
Yeah. And areas and everything like Ryan, we're going to get another question from you and Tom before we wrap up.
Hey, I'm back.
Wrap up. I'm just getting going, but no, go ahead.
I wanted to speak a little bit more about Michael Sledge, because I mean, you talked a little bit about his upbringing, but the movie is about him becoming a world karate champion, right? I'm a huge karate fan, martial arts fan. How did that story even come across your plate to even, want to retell this story? Great question. I knew Michael. We went to the same college. Okay. And we had a situation where I was going to fight Michael. I knew he knew karate. Okay. But if you grow up in the Bronx, you're not afraid of anybody. You have to be. Your mindset is, I don't care how tall they are. I don't care how big they are. I don't care if they know karate. You got to fight them or you're a punk. That was my mindset. Thank God I did not fight him. But right. I was at that point where I was going to challenge him.
And he laughed because he knew he could kill me. That's why he was laughing. So that's how we became friends. We stayed friends for 50 something years.
Oh, wow.
And then later on, I found out how good he was. And before I took on the project of doing the story, I said, well, give me some of your mentors. He worked amongst some of the greatest Black karate artists in the world. And what I started to find from my questions is, how come your stories aren't being told?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, I don't want to speak for them, but I have to say this, there was racism involved. And he said, if you look at the people that are shown, they're either white or Asian.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're not shown. And then I started doing the investigation of Moses Powell. Moses Powell was amazing. And so I asked Michael one time, I said, Mike, so could you have fought Bruce Lee? He said, I don't know. But all of my mentors said I was faster and better than Bruce Lee. I said, come on, Mike. He said, no, I'm telling you. So I started researching, and they said, no, he was probably the fastest person I've ever seen in my life. And then I started calling friends that knew Michael, mutual friends that were boxers. And they said, no, he's the fastest hands I've ever seen in my life. And so then I started putting two and two together that race was involved in karate. It's involved in all, not to take away from not to take away from all the great karate fighters of different, but I started realizing that as far as television and movies,
right,
people of color were not being represented. They weren't being told of how great they were. They were great.
I'm about to send you a film my uncle did. Mm-hmm. It's called Because They Believed. And it's about racism in sports, right?
Really?
Yeah, and I wrote the theme song to it. I'm going to send you that. Tom, you got another question?
Well, I'm going to bundle up two in one, if you don't mind. Firstly, a 2-for-1 combo. Here we go. Ready? Well, basically, of all the film work that you've done, is there a particular standout, sort of proudest or most standout film that you've done? And what's next for you film-wise?
Great question. The one that people would say War for Your Soul, because that's the one that I was traveling 60 different cities, giving speeches, right, keys to the city, all that stuff. Believe it or not, I look at that as like an accident. And I don't recommend people to watch it because I didn't know what I was doing then. And so it's just a bunch of clips with music behind it and narration. So people would think anything that garnered 20 million views, you would think that's your proudest work. I'm really not, because I didn't know what I was doing. The film that I'm probably proudest of the most was I did a film about Muhammad Ali. It's called When Cassius Became Muhammad. Mm-hmm. And I was able to show a side of Muhammad Ali that people have either forgotten or didn't know. I was really happy with that, with the research. And I'm proud of Michael's work, the research that I did with Michael being this karate champion, winning Pan Am gold medals and traveling the world and being beaten up and all this other stuff. And so I'm probably proudest of my latest works, not because it's my latest works, but because I learned how to film. I learned how to create films. You know, in the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just putting pictures and music, so I didn't know what I was doing. But that's probably, it's a great question, probably not the most famous ones, but the ones that I've learned my craft. I've learned how to transition and do all that neat stuff.
These are on your YouTube channel. These
yes, Greatness 5 is a YouTube channel that has pretty much all my films on it. The only one that's not on it, believe it or not, is War for Your Soul. That's on another channel that's on Vimeo.
Okay.
And believe it or not, I stopped telling people to watch that. And one of the things I wanted to address before we go is people have asked me, why are all your films centered around the African-American experience? Mm-hmm. And it's not to divide us, but it's to tell we have something going on in this country now called critical race training, CRT or whatever they call it.
Critical race theory.
Critical race theory, right. And my problem with that is if you taught history the way it's supposed to be taught, you wouldn't need to give us a CRT. You wouldn't need to have that. As a former history teacher, I taught the whole thing. I didn't just talk about slavery for a week. No, I let my white students know at all times what was going on with Black people at this time. So when we talk about World War I will go into World War I. Yes, we did this. World War II. Yes, we did this. But I need to let you know about these other group of people, what was going on with them at this time. What do you mean? I need to let you know that in 1919, when the Black Civil War vets came back, they were treated so inhumane, and they were fighting for this country. I need to let you know that, to the point where one kid, I'll never forget his name. I'm not going to say his name now, but he said to me, he said, Mr. Bullock, let me ask you a question. Is this a Black history, American history course? I said, no, it's not. I'm just giving you American history. And American history, if you really know it, Sky, I want to give you props. You grew up in Oakland, right?
Yeah.
Oakland is huge as far as when you talk about Black history. It's huge.
Oh yeah, the Black
All
Panthers.
of Detroit and Oakland are those are my three spots.
The Black Panthers. It's the birth of the Black Panthers. We had the baddest black gang and the baddest white gang in the same town. That was the Black Panthers and the Hells Angels.
Yes, and the music. They
never fought each other. They always fought against the police. Right. It's serious political town, Oakland, man.
And the music, Sheila E., all the greats that came out. I mean, it's just
Sly.
Bigger than what you can imagine. Yes, Sly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So again, I travel with Sly. But the what I want to one more thing before we go, man. I do this to everybody that come on the show. Is we'd like to have your endorsement for our movement to keep teaching young people how to write positive lyrical content.
100%. I'm going to not only I'm going to subscribe to your channel, but I'm going to send this out to everybody within the sound of my voice. And the one thing I can tell all three of you is you have a great platform. Do not worry about the numbers. Do not worry about how many views and how many people. It doesn't matter. Because the reality is, if you change one person, and I can say this from experience, when I created War for Your Soul, I was just hoping 10 people would watch this. I didn't know 20 million. Now there's 20 million. I don't care. I go back to, but all you wanted was 10 people to watch this. All you guys need to do with this platform, what you're doing with this show, is continue interviewing different people, different backgrounds, all this other stuff. And what's going to happen is you may change that one person that becomes the next prime minister.
That's right.
The next president, the next Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson had his weird issue. I ain't talking about that. But the bottom line is, you don't know who you're affecting in this world, especially with social media. You don't know who you're affecting.
That's right. And we are affecting people because, this is like our 57th, 58th show.
Right.
And I go out and find people that have interesting stories that did it for themselves.
Right.
Because people need to hear you can do it for yourself.
You can.
Right. And everybody that I have come on, they took something from nothing and made something out of it. Right. Yes. Last week we had the ambassador for South Africa. She's the ambassador for Mandela. And she endorsed us. She said, I love music and music can change the world. Yes. You know what I mean? So we're going to keep going like that. And I love you, brother. Great to see you, man. Namaste. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Reggie.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Namaste, brother. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Music can save the world. Music can save the world. If we all get together, music can save the world. Yeah. Music can save the world. Music can save the world. If we all come together, music can save the world. There's an urgency facing our humanity.
Thank you so much for watching. To stay up to date, please click subscribe and hit the bell. You can also join our group on Facebook and find us on LinkedIn and Instagram.